Hi all, Old Geek here, and it's time for an old school module review. Today I'll be looking at N4, Treasure Hunt. The N stands for Novice, as the modules in that series were allegedly aimed at beginning players and DMs. And thus, as N4, Treasure Hunt inherited a proverbial poison chalice. The N series had hiccuped and burped its way through the early 1980s. It had begun with one of the most engrossing modules of all time, the thoroughly excellent Against the Cult of the Reptile God. But whoever had decided that it should be designated as a novice module had clearly been sampling the ale on offer at the wrong tavern. Then came N2, the Forest Oracle, which I suppose did one thing well, in that it showed newbie players and newbie DMs where the basement was in terms of adventure design, and gave them hope that they too might be able to get a module published, no matter how badly written it was. N3, Destiny of Kings, was next, a module I owned at some point in time, but I never ran it, and I remember nothing about it. Whether that was due to me being that age where I was discovering a social life, or the quality of the adventure itself, I can't say. So poor little N4 had to follow all of that, appearing in 1987 towards the end of first edition AD&D's lifetime. Visually, I think it is quite appealing. The cover is dramatic, and the module contains a good variety of maps and handouts. The main adventure booklet runs to 36 pages, but there is also a central pull-out section containing pre-generated characters and sheets to help the DM track the course of the adventure and character development. Internal art, though, is extremely variable. There are some very nice dramatic images of events in the adventure, but for every good one, there's another that is laughable. Some pieces set a suitably dark tone, but yet others break that atmosphere with what appear to be comical elements. For me, an experienced DM, the writing in the module feels overly wordy, but remember it's supposed to be a novice product. Thus the added explanation that is wasted on me is suitable for the module's purpose. The various chapters are in a logical order, they flow, and they are easy to follow, so it works as a novice adventure in that sense. But sadly there are several instances of the dodgy editing that blighted TSR's products of the mid-1980s. And not just the usual typos. Numbers are duplicated on one of the maps, and as a result do not align with the room descriptions in the module itself. TSR by this point in time had a fully deserved reputation for putting out products that were rushed. Proofreading was obviously seen as an unnecessary luxury, and it shows. So to the adventure itself. The party begin in the hold of a pirate ship. They have been captured and are to be sold into slavery. But then a storm hits with a vengeance, battering the ship and washing most of the crew and unfortunate captives overboard. Miles off course, the damaged ship runs aground on a windswept island, and the party are presented with an opportunity to regain their freedom. Along the way, they battle the elements, they learn the reason for the storm, and have various run-ins with the island's bickering inhabitants. It's not a particularly innovative plot, but it works well when you take into account that the PCs begin this adventure at level 0. They are normal people with regular day-to-day professions. They are not adventurers, at least not yet. They must learn the art of adventuring in order to survive. Teamwork and resourcefulness are the order of the day. They begin with no equipment and must use what they find along the way if they are to have any hope of survival. What's this? A module in the N series that contains a simple plot, assistance for the DM, starts the party at level 0, and teaches the players to work together? You mean an actual novice module? Finally. As the module progresses, the idea is that the DM keeps a tally of how each character reacts to the various problems they face, their general attitude, the items they use, and the methods they employ. They begin at minus 500 XP, and they get to become first level when that total reaches 0, which should be about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the adventure, at which time the DM is encouraged to sit down with each player and discuss what their character has become. The advice the module gives here is solid. Work with your players, show them your reasoning, let them have some input, but ultimately the final decision is that of the DM. There are a few limitations that the module tries to impose that I believe are unnecessary though, such as ruling out multi-class characters, which of course are part of the raison d'etre for demi-humans. I say ignore that bit. If my party's halfling has tried to be stealthy, but has also shown bravery in combat when needed, then why can't he become a fighter thief? The system used to track character development is incredibly simple. It works, and the players do have plenty of suitable choices to make along the way. Though if there is one criticism, it is that due to the fragility and the lack of effective equipment, the party really need to be cautious and to try to avoid detection whenever possible, which does naturally guide the characters down the thief path a little too easily. Likewise, it is extremely risky to gain check marks towards becoming a fighter. Plus, there is only really one opportunity that a player can grab if they are considering becoming a magic user. There are a few magic items dotted around that can help the party, but the system shoehorned into the module to hand-wave away the usual requirements to be able to use such items does feel a little clumsy to me. It's granted by a goddess. I understand that it's necessary in order to be able to bypass class restrictions on such items, but to my old grognardy mind it was a little bit weird. Perhaps the most engaging aspect of Treasure Hunt for me is the way that it strips away the heroism of fantasy gaming, and it turns the adventure into a pure battle for survival. There's no need for elaborate backgrounds to justify any character abilities. You experience those abilities forming firsthand. It unites a small group of desperate commoners in a cause, gives them a reason to be together, forces them to bond as a team, and charts their initial awakening as adventurers. Thus it creates a joint background for them all together. However, it is this begin at level 0 aspect that, somewhat through necessity, results in several flaws. The module is linear. It gives the appearance of being location based, but once you get into the nuts and bolts of running it, its event based structure comes to the fore. Certain things happen in a certain order and have to do so in order for the adventure to make sense and for the power levels of the party to be appropriate. It does redeem itself a little here by offering the players creative ways of dealing with some of the events, but still that linearity is there throughout. The adventure also feels a little empty at times. Again, this is due to the inherent weakness of the party. They cannot cope with even typical first level challenges. A lone, drunken first level pirate becomes a lethal encounter, as do a couple of giant rats. But one particular section is woefully sparse and underdeveloped. I'm trying to avoid too many spoilers here in this review, but anyone familiar with the adventure will know the bit that I'm referring to. Treasure Hunt is not a module for everyone. play by necessity is relatively slow paced, and those looking for a traditional kill monster, get loot AD&D experience might feel a little underwhelmed. It's a module for the thinking player, with more than a slight nod to A4 in the Dungeons of the Slave Lords, in the fact that it forces players to use only what they're able to find along the way to deal with what the module presents them. But when trying to evaluate N4 Treasure Hunt, I do need to take into account what it's trying to achieve, and that is to be a novice adventure. And in that sense, it succeeds far more effectively than any of the previous modules in the N series. It is both simple and innovative. The mechanics it introduces work. It is easy to run and contains some solid advice for the DM, and it works extremely well as a means of opening a campaign. While it would later be retconned into the Forgotten Realms, it's very simple to insert it into any traditional D&D setting, though I would suggest changing a few island names if you want the game to be taken seriously. There's no way with my group of players that I'm having islands called Chordic or Tetris. Is the module perfect? Well, clearly not. Aside from the shoddy editing, the attempt to deny demi-human characters from multiclassing is unforgivable. The traditional halfling fighter thief or elven fighter mage are iconic options. And not to mention that this restriction is oddly out of place, given that the other character development mechanics are pleasingly flexible. The adventure itself is somewhat linear, and at times it can be a little uninspiring and bland. The beginning and the end of the adventure are both excellent, and while there are a few other highlights along the way, it does meander in the middle. But ultimately, I have to give it credit for trying something different and mostly succeeding in that aim. I'm going to give N4 Treasure Hunt a solid 7 out of 10. It's a worthwhile module. It's not for everyone. It has flaws, but at least it's a proper novice adventure in the Novice series. Well, that concludes this review. I do hope you've enjoyed it, and you know the drill by now, at least I hope you do. Click like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and come and join me and my panel of fellow nerds on our live streams. I've been the Old Geek. See ya!